Hello, everyone. I couldn't wait. I was gonna wait a couple of days, but I can't. I'm like Lorne. I need instant gratification. So let's continue. We're gonna go ahead and do the second transcript here, and I realize these may be a little fixed a little bit different way than my other videos because I'm not as humorous, if you can call it humor. I'm not injecting as much humor into it, but this is sort of an indulgence for me. I tend to do that a lot because I'm a lot like Lorne, a whole lot, in that I like my instant gratification and I like to indulge my vices to a certain extent, this being one. And also because I am really actually very interested in the ins and outs of the whole thing. I want to understand it. And if anybody thinks I'm talking out of my ass, feel free to let me know. I'm just stating my opinion. I made it pretty clear. I'm not an attorney. I'm trying to talk it out, to explain it to myself, to understand. Because, legal language isn't always so easy to understand, right? So, anyway, if this is a little too dry for your taste, I understand. There'll be more goofy goofball shit coming up, but we're going to hear a little bit of Lorne here. So it might be worth your time to have a listen. So I'm going to shut the fuck up about that, and we're going to start with the United States District Court, District of Maine, United States of America versus Lorne Lynn Armstrong, a.k.a. It cracks me up every fucking time. Lorne _A_200014 defendant. And this is his revocation hearing and his, you'll see as we go along. Transcript of proceedings. Pursuant to notice, the above entitled matter came on for revocation hearing before the Honorable John A. Woodcock, Jr. Oh, he's a junior. In the United States District Court, Bangor, Maine, on the first day of October 2019 at 10:19 a.m. Appearances for the government: Joel B. Casey, Esquire. That's a different guy, I guess, than the last one. For the defendant, Matthew D. Morgan, Esquire, and for U.S. probation, Maria is not there that day. It is Bryce Turgeon and the lovely Ms. Edgecombe, official court reporter. Defendant present with counsel in open court. All right, we're here in the matter of United States versus Lorne Lynn Armstrong, which is 13 CR 11 JAW, whatever that is. Don't know. Not going to look it up. Would counsel please enter their appearances? Mr. Casey, Joel Casey for the government, Mr. Morgan, and Matthew Morgan for Mr. Armstrong, Your Honor. I would note that Bryce Turgeon is present on behalf of probation. Mr. Armstrong, would you stand? Mr. Armstrong, the purpose of the hearing today is for me to determine whether you committed any of the violations of the terms and conditions of your supervised release that the government has alleged. And if you have committed any of those violations, to determine what punishment should follow as a consequence of the violations.
Yes, sir.
Do you understand why you are here today?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Now, you understand that you have a right to be represented by an attorney throughout these proceedings?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
And in fact, Mr. Morgan, the gentleman standing beside you, has been representing you in this matter, correct?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Have you been satisfied with Mr. Morgan's services?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
And do you authorize him to act and speak for you throughout the course of these proceedings?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Have you received written notice of the charged violations?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
It's becoming like when you meditate and you say something over and over. Have you had an opportunity to discuss the charges with your attorney?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
And do you understand the charges being made against you?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
I've been informed in advance that you wish to admit violations 1, 2, 3, and 5. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Your Honor, I do.
Before you do so, I'm going to ask the prosecutor to stand up and set forth the evidence that the government would bring to bear if the matter were to go to a formal hearing. So basically, the judges just went through with Lorne to make sure he understands what they're there for, and he's going to admit to all the violations except for 4, which I'm guessing it was an agreement. If he admits to these, they'll drop 4. I don't know. I don't have any knowledge of that for certain, but that's sort of the vibe I'm getting from it. So they're going to say now the prosecutor is going to give the evidence that they would give against him should he decide he wants to take it to trial. Or a formal hearing, rather. I'm going to ask that you carefully listen to what Mr. Casey has to say, and after he is finished, I'm going to ask you whether you wish to have a hearing on whether you committed these violations, or whether you wish to concede that you committed the violations I listed. Do you understand what's going to happen?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
You may be seated. Mr. Casey? Your Honor, according to the petition filed by the U.S. Probation Office on July 25, 2019, the U.S. Probation Office alleges, with respect to the first charge, that Mr. Armstrong violated standard condition number 7, which requires him to refrain from excessive use of alcohol. So in the very beginning, Lorne was only, he was only prohibited from excessive use of alcohol. He could drink alcohol, and this is typical Lorne. You give him an inch, and he takes 10 miles. He was not prohibited from consuming alcohol. He was only prohibited from excessive use. And a smarter person, or a more self-aware person maybe, would have been able to get away with the kind of drinking that Lorne has been doing and not done the things that he's done, as we're going to find out. They would be able to drink privately, alone, or whatever, and not get caught. But because Lorne thinks, he should be able to do whatever he wishes, this is why he's in the position he's in. According to the petition, the evidence of that violation would come in the form of the testimony of representatives of the U.S. Probation Office who observed Mr. Armstrong in an excessively intoxicated state on September 15, 2015 and October 7, 2015. And there's documents stating exactly what happened. I think the probation officer had gone to do a welfare check, and there was, Bud Light cans everywhere, and he was drunk. Next, the U.S. Probation Office charges that Mr. Armstrong violated the special condition requiring him not to use or possess drugs or alcohol. Evidence of this charge violation would come in the form of testimony of representatives of the U.S. Probation Office who would testify that on May 4th, 2017, July 26th, 2017, October 4th, 2017, April 16th, 2019, June 28th, 2019, and July 24th, 2019, they came into possession of evidence that Mr. Armstrong used or possessed alcohol on each of those days. So they either witnessed it, or they have evidence from an outside source that he used it. And with respect to the incident on July 24th, 2019, Mr. Armstrong candidly admitted to a probation officer that he had been regularly consuming alcohol since December of 2017. Now, Lorne at some point had made the admission to probation that he regularly, for all these years, on a weekend, would consume 7 to 12 beers in a sitting every weekend. I don't know why he would admit to that. Maybe he was, with Lorne, the reason is probably because he was backed into a corner, and he thought that would be his best option to admit it. Next, the U.S. Probation Office charges a violation of the special condition requiring that the defendant submit to remote alcohol monitoring. So that's when he had his breathalyzer on his phone. And god damn it, wouldn't it be great? Because he was saying when he would get that, hello, Theo, when he would get that alert that he would have to blow into this device, it would take a picture of him while he's blowing into this thing on his phone. How great would it be to get those the photographs of him blowing into this fucking device? Imagine the possibilities. Representatives of the U.S. Probation Office would testify that Mr. Armstrong failed to submit to the test as directed on October 3rd, 2017 and October 6th, 2017. So they notified him to take the test and he didn't do it. Finally, Your Honor, and 2 years went by. 2 years. Before they finally, and I don't want to be, I know people were questioning, like, for years, like, why doesn't probation do anything? And I'm thinking it was either they were trying to give him enough rope to really hang himself, or when it got to the point where they had evidence that he was drinking and driving, and they realized they had to do something before he killed somebody, and they were somehow held liable for not taking action against him. It's just my opinion. Finally, Your Honor, the U.S. Probation Office charges that Mr. Armstrong violated the special condition requiring him to participate in sex offender treatment. Representatives from the U.S. Probation Office and his sex offender treatment provider would testify that Mr. Armstrong was suspended from his sex offender treatment program on July 25, 2019 for withholding information regarding his alcohol use. So he's drinking and he's lying about it. As the court indicated, and listen, probation has been so, I don't want to say easy on him because now he's in prison. That's great. But I almost wonder as well if they were kind of I can just imagine Lorne every time he would get caught going, I'm going to go to AA. I'm an alcoholic. I need help. And maybe they really were trying to give him the benefit of the doubt and to help him. And Lorne is a skilled liar. I know that these probation officers are used to dealing with liars, but Lorne is an incredibly skilled liar. As the court indicated, the government and the probation office anticipate that Mr. Armstrong is going to admit to each of these violations and that the probation office is asking the court to allow it to withdraw the fourth charged violation. Thank you. Thank you. So that's that little sentence there is why I think maybe they made a little deal. Mr. Armstrong, would you stand again? Do you understand you have a right to a hearing to contest these charges?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Do you understand that at the hearing, if the government calls witnesses, you would have the right to have questions asked of them and to object to evidence they may offer?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Do you understand that you would also have the right to present evidence on your own behalf, and that includes the right to subpoena witnesses to testify?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Do you understand that if you admit these charges, there'll be no hearing on the charges?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Do you understand that by admitting these charges, you'll be subject to penalties? And Lorne interrupts.
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
And those penalties may well include spending more time in prison?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Do you understand that if you concede you committed these violations, the only remaining issue will be what punishment to impose? So he's saying, Lorne, if you say that you did these things, we're not going to have a hearing. I'm just going to impose your punishment. We're going to talk about that, and that's it.
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Mr. Armstrong, do you wish to have a hearing on whether you committed these violations, or do you wish to concede that you committed them?
I wish to concede that I committed them, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may be seated. I wonder if Lorne even understood anything that was just asked of him. I doubt it. His lawyer probably told him, listen, dummy, when we go in, you just say, yes, sir, Your Honor. That's it. Thank you. You may be seated. I find the defendant has knowingly and voluntarily waived his rights to a hearing pursuant to Rule 32.1. I also find that the waiver was knowing and voluntary and that there's a factual basis for the admission. And we all know that waiving his rights means nothing to Lorne because later on he'll just go and try to file a lawsuit anyway. Oh, he'll file a lawsuit. He filed a lawsuit against the government for making him waive his rights. I mean, for fuck's sake. This guy's an idiot. Mr. Casey, have you received a copy of the revocation report in this case? I have, Your Honor. Do you have any objections to its contents? I do not, Your Honor. Now we're getting to the good part. Hang in there, guys, because it's going to get good. Mr. Morgan, have you had an opportunity to review with your client the revocation report in this case? Yes, Your Honor. And does he have any objections to its contents? We have some disagreements about the sentence, but nothing in terms of the guideline recommendations, if that's what the court's asking. No. I'm asking about the contents of the report, and I'll get to the guideline calculations in a moment. Okay. We have disagreements with probation's characterization of his access on the internet for vindicating himself, as it's put in the report. We haven't gotten into the details of this case yet. I'm sure we will. But he was on a national television program called To Catch a Predator, and Lorne's got to sit there again, and he's got to listen while people talk about him being one to catch a predator in this courtroom with people he doesn't know, and in front of a judge, an authority figure that certainly Lorne would want someone like that to think he's a good guy. Let's find out what happens. I can't. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble hearing you. So is the court reporter. That's why I'm supposed to wear this. I apologize. I guess he has a mic or something. He was on a television program called To Catch a Predator, Your Honor. That has caused him some unfortunate notoriety. His attorney characterizes this as an unfortunate notoriety, as if it's sort of a circumstance. Poor, unfortunate Lorne. But I mean, that's the lawyer's job, I know. I believe that it's probation's position that he has participated in that notoriety in a way that is denying acceptance, and Mr. Armstrong does not agree with that characterization of the facts. Of course he doesn't, because he thinks he's accepted what he did. But there's always a but. But in terms of the alcohol violations and his suspension from treatment, those things that he admitted, he has no disagreement with the facts in the report. Okay, well, let's see what we're talking about here. So are you talking about on page 6, the third paragraph, talking about the May 4th, 2017 anonymous email? Yes, Your Honor, that's part of what he disagrees with. I would love to see this email. I would love this email. I would love to have access to this. All the evidence in this case, I would love to have access to. Is there a way to get that? Does anyone know if there's a way, like a Freedom of Information Act request, or I don't know. But if there is a way to get these things, I want to try to get them. Just saying. Yes, Your Honor, that's part of what he disagrees with. Okay, here it says, of note, the United States Probation Office had received several anonymous emails from individuals who believed Armstrong was a predator and wanted to see him incarcerated. Armstrong additionally continued to engage with these individuals, attempting to vindicate himself. Armstrong also attempted to make money by selling items involved in his conviction, i.e. shirts and mugs online. It's 100% true. All of that is true. I still have a screenshot somewhere of this fucking Lorne Armstrong reality site where he had his fucking t-shirts and his mugs. And he sold one fucking t-shirt. Everybody knows this. He sold one t-shirt and he didn't even deliver on that. He's a piece of fucking garbage. His behavior was being addressed in treatment as it was not conducive to his progress in sex offender treatment, since he would not accept any culpability in his case. That makes sense to me. A person who accepted responsibility for something they've done would not turn around and try to make money based on that notoriety. They wouldn't. He's a moron. What is it that I have read what is in controversy here. Yes, Your Honor. In part, What it is that these emails are being sent indicating that Mr. Armstrong is, quote, still a predator. There's been no proof of that. There kind of has. Probation doesn't assert it, but the fact that those emails are even mentioned demonstrates his concern that him trying to vindicate himself on the internet by responding to people on YouTube channels, whether right or wrong, somehow is something that should be considered an aggravating factor for the court. I guess I kind of get... Lorne is like making this poor lawyer... I don't know. I don't even know what to say about this. To any rational human being, it would seem to be an aggravating factor, wouldn't it? Someone who is in sex offender treatment, and part of his treatment is to accept responsibility for what he's done. But it would be like, let's say another individual in that class was a serial rapist, and he had, for whatever reason, he had a blog online or some shit. I don't know. And he had a following, and he sold t-shirts like, he's the serial rapist, or he's, I'm the rapist therapist, or I don't even know how to describe it. It's so absurd to me. And I think because there was no quote unquote real victim, Lorne doesn't think he's a predator. But there are real victims. So anyway, I know I probably didn't make a lot of sense. Sometimes my my thoughts are so fucking abstract sometimes. But anyway, I believe that it is considered an aggravating factor. The rapist therapist. Jesus Christ. Well, it sounds like that's not a little disagreement. We have a fairly significant disagreement on that aspect. Not on the alcohol consumption, but on his actions that are listed as I've described. So as I understand it, he was, on October 18th, 2007, he traveled in interstate commerce with the intention to engage in an illicit sexual contact with a person he had met online who he thought was Kyla. A 13-year-old minor, and it was actually an undercover sting. He'd left Tennessee, and then he traveled to Bowling Green, Kentucky when he was arrested. I love that Lorne had to sit there and listen to that. Don't you? He should have to listen. Someone every morning should knock on his door and say, "You're Lorne Armstrong. On October 18th, 2007, you traveled in interstate commerce with the intention to engage in illicit sexual contact with a person you met online who you thought was Kayla, a 13-year-old minor." He'd left Tennessee, and then he traveled to Bowling Green, Kentucky when he was arrested. He then pleaded guilty to that charge and was sentenced to 60 months and placed on incarceration and was placed on supervised release for life. And he ultimately found his way to Maine. It strikes me that the charge number 5, which is the defendant shall fully participate in sex offender treatment, is in part related to whether he's involved in the conduct that I just read about. That's what I was saying. He's not admitting his culpability. He's not fully participating in sex offender treatment. So how do counsel wish to proceed? Is there a disagreement here about the facts that the court should consider? Or are these facts not relevant as far as the prosecutor is concerned? Your Honor, may I check with the probation office? Mr. Casey speaking with Mr. Turgeon and Mr. Morgan. Your Honor, I apologize for the delay. It may take a couple of minutes for defense counsel in the probation office to sort through this issue. If we could have a brief recess, that might be productive. Sure. So this is the revocation report interweaves 2 issues. And the first issue is ongoing alcohol use and his inability to control his alcohol intake. And the second, from my perspective in looking at it, was his, I'd say, flirtation with sexual misconduct. I don't like the way that's characterized. Flirtation with sexual misconduct. I don't think what he did is a flirtation at all. I think it was... is far from flirtation as rape is from flirtation. The first is, as I've indicated, I just read aloud this characterization that the United States Probation Office made about his attempts to vindicate himself, at least in the probation office's words. But then on October 8th, 2018, there was an anonymous email that reported that he was attempting to arrange for an unknown female to send him sexually explicit pictures through the mail, so probation would be unable to find the images. And then the next day, he admitted that he had requested the images, and he also admitted purchasing a smartphone without permission. Interesting. So who is Lorne speaking with on October 8th, 2018? Whoever he was speaking with, and I don't know, I'm not being facetious here. Whoever he was speaking with, I would assume is the one that sent the anonymous email. And probably has a recording of that conversation. And I imagine Lorne admitted to the smartphone because the email probably hinted at that as well, or it was, he thought it may have been mentioned. And then he's ultimately placed on computer monitoring restrictions. It says his internet access was not reinstated due to the risk he posed to the community based on his unwillingness to stop engaging with women whom he had never met online and that their ages were unknown. So Lorne has been asked several times since his computer has been taken and thrown completely away. He's been asked several times if he wants to go back online, and he says, "Oh, I have no interest in it." Come to find out, Lorne's not allowed to. And it's not because probation has his computer.
I don't have my computer back, so I can't do anything.
He will not stop engaging in these activities. He can't be trusted to have online access. And he's always trying to skirt probation's rules. So, and then on March 20th, 2018, the mental health and substance abuse counseling was terminated because he'd made minimal progress. This motherfucker has been in rape class for what? 5 years? 5 fucking years? And he's made minimal progress. That should tell you everything you need to know about Lorne Armstrong. If you knew nothing else, you could say, there's this guy. He tried to have sex with a kid. He's been in rape class for 5 years and he's made minimal progress. You don't need to fill in the blanks. You know everything you need to know about him right there. Lorne, I'm sure, would disagree, but
because we never met him face to face.
Well, some of us have. So fucking jealous. I'm going next time. I'm going to the next hearing or trial or whatever proceeding they have where he comes in handcuffs. I swear. I put my hand and I swear to whatever creative force is in the universe. I'll be there. And then there's this business about March 28, 2018. Armstrong had no significant reaction to the polygraph, but disclosed after the examination he had other people access the internet for him as he was prohibited from using the internet. And he would have females who he met online and had never met, I guess that means personally,
face to face,
call him and make changes to his YouTube account on his behalf once or twice per week, which violated the computer and internet monitoring condition. So Lorne's full of shit when he says,
I can stand behind Roy while he's on the computer.
He can't even have someone when he's not even looking at the computer. He can't have anyone use the computer for him in any way. So my concern is, obviously, how much of this is he admitting? What is he denying? And whether it matters for purposes of what I do on the revocation. So I'm going to direct counsel to try and respond to those questions for me. And court is recessed from 10:38 to 10:59. So everybody goes out and has a smoke, and they come back. And counsel, apologize for the delay, Your Honor. We've had a chance to speak with the attorney for the government and probation. Mr. Armstrong is willing to admit that, well, each of the paragraphs that the court addressed, but in particular, the May 4th, 2017, but with the important understanding that probation has not corroborated any of these emails accusing him of being a predator or in any way confirmed that they were true. So what I didn't want to do is admit the facts to the court and then be arguing differently at sentencing. So I guess the point is, Lorne's lawyer doesn't want to concede that these emails may be true and have it turn around, I guess, later and bite him in the ass. I guess that's smart. I don't know. Not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I play one on the internet, though. Well, the way I interpreted this, it may help or may not. He has been convicted, and he has to hear it again. This is so golden. God damn it! I wish I had been there. Well, the way I interpreted this, and it may help or may not. He has been convicted of traveling in interstate commerce to engage in illicit sexual contact with a person he believed was 13 years old. That, I think, fits the definition of predator. Ta-da! Yes, certainly, Your Honor. So, I don't assign any particular weight to someone who is claiming, if that's what they're claiming, that he continues to engage in predatory conduct. I don't see any evidence of that. So I don't assign any particular weight to someone who is claiming, if that's what they're claiming, that he continues to be engaged in predatory. I don't see any evidence of that. Okay. So I guess the judge is basically saying, I'm not giving that a lot of weight in my judgment. The emails, I guess. This is a little confusing for me, but we're going to power through. Okay. Although there is a suggestion that he's flirting with it. He's flirting with being a predator. So there's no hard evidence. There's anonymous emails. There's certainly plenty of evidence on the internet. I don't know what kind of weight that would be given in court. But Lorne knows it. Lorne knows what's out there. He knows. He's stupid, but he ain't dumb. Well, he's dumb too, but you know what I'm saying. But what I still think that if someone who maybe watched this show and takes it upon themselves to anonymously send an email to the probation office saying we think he's a predator because he was caught in a show that was designed to catch predators, that's sort of a tautology. I don't know what that means. I kind of get what he's saying. I feel like Lorne right now. What's that word mean? Somebody leave me a comment and say, hey, Kelly, you're a dumbass. It means this. I guess it's sort of like somebody sitting at home, watched a show about predators and found his RSO thing online and sent probation an email saying this guy's a predator. Well, he was on a show called To Catch a Predator. I guess that's exactly understood. Okay. 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 Does that help? It does, Your Honor. So basically, no big deal. All right. So I gather that the defendant does not have any objections to the contents of the revocation report as prepared. No objections, Your Honor. The court makes the following guideline calculations. So we're going to read some dry stuff, but I want to be true to this thing, and I want to read it. The grade of violation is C. The criminal history category, is that an I or a 1? I'm going to say I. The guideline range is 3 to 9 months. The statutory range is 3 years. The term of supervision is life. The $100 special assessment has been paid in full. So as I understand it, there's all these guidelines. They make these calculations, and that's how they come up with the sentence. And then you add in mitigating factors and, things like that. Again, I'm just playing a lawyer on the internet. Is there any objection to these findings on the part of the government? No, Your Honor. On the part of the defendant? No, Your Honor. You may be seated. Mr. Casey, would you like to be heard on sentence? I would. Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, in this case, the U.S. Probation Office is recommending that the court sentence Mr. Armstrong to a term of imprisonment of 6 months, to be followed by a lifetime term of supervised release, with all of the conditions set forth in the revocation report. Your Honor, Mr. Armstrong was released November 5th, 2012, and it appears from the report that he has made it almost 3 years before he started letting alcohol interfere with his life again. I guess that's true enough. I'm getting some yogurt out of my fridge. Sorry, I want to eat some yogurt. Oh, fuck. I guess that's true. Notably, my eyes are bad. Notably, in the pre-sentence report from his Kentucky case, he acknowledged that he might have a problem with alcohol and that he'd be amenable to treatment. So we have that level of self-awareness. Well, I don't know about that. What he said in the pre-sentence report, as I read it, was he had begun consuming alcohol when he was 20. So they're talking about the pre-sentencing report from his original sentence sorry about that. This is all falling to shit. Sorry. His pre-sentence report from his original case. God damn it, I can't see. He began consuming alcohol when he was 20. He last drank alcohol a couple of days prior to his arrest. That's bullshit. He probably did it the day before. On October 18th, 2007. He described himself as someone who drank socially and indicated Budweiser Light. I love that this is on record. It's now officially a court record. What type of beer Lorne likes to drink. Budweiser Light was his drink of choice. He indicated he typically drank beer on the weekends and would drink to the point of intoxication if he was upset. And he's upset all the time, so. He expressed that he believes he has a borderline problem with his consumption of alcohol, but he feels he would benefit from treatment for alcohol abuse. He denied any history of blackouts, and he denied any history of drug abuse. He's an alcoholic. That's all I'm going to say about that. So I think he sort of had it both ways back when in the pre-sentence report. He was a social drinker, but he realized that maybe he had a problem and maybe he didn't. I'm not so sure I'd characterize it the way you did, that he recognized he had a problem. I think he was equivocating back then, as he always does. Understood, Your Honor. Well, he certainly expressed that he was willing to undergo treatment back then, right? Which is something that there's no indication of that now. Not only is there no indication of that, but he's covering up his drinking. And when confronted about it, he's lying about it. He's even lying during polygraph examinations about it. And this is what ultimately led to him being removed from sex offender treatment, because he couldn't even be honest in sex offender treatment about his drinking. And ultimately I saw them as interrelated. He was, and it's hard to know. I mean, I don't know Mr. Armstrong, but it's very hard to know how much of his online conduct and his inappropriate, I would say, online conduct with females is related to drinking, and how much of that does he drink and then lower his inhibitions and go online and do foolish things, or is the alcohol related to his acting out online? Listen, Lorne is an alcoholic, so whether he's drinking or not, it's influencing what he does. If that makes sense to you, I hope it does. The way that I read the report, Your Honor, and in my discussions with the probation office, my sense is that the sex offender treatment provider believed that, as a general matter, consuming alcohol and lying about it is counterproductive to sex offender treatment. Well, of course. Because as you mentioned, alcohol reduces inhibitions, and whether the result of that reduced inhibition is that you go online and try to entice a young girl, or whether you get drunk and you go down to the park and, try to entice a young girl, the problem is alcohol reduces inhibitions, and that is counterproductive to successful sex offender treatment. So my sense is that's why the sex offender treatment provider kicked him out of the program, because not only was he using alcohol, but he was lying about it. I don't even think it was about him using alcohol. I think it was just about him lying about everything. drinking, the conduct on the phone with women he doesn't know, things like that. You know, I think that the probation office has a lot of hardworking, professional, committed officers who are willing to work with Mr. Armstrong, but he's got to be honest with them. And he needs to be honest with them, Your Honor, because not only is it conducive to his treatment and recovery, but the probation office has an obligation to protect the public, and they cannot have a sex offender drinking excessively, lying about it, hiding it. They can't have somebody like that walking the streets or cruising the internet because it puts people in danger. Put that in a fucking frame and hang it up on the wall of the trailer of failure that Roy is now posted up in. And I think that's why, the primary reason why the probation office is recommending a term of further imprisonment for Mr. Armstrong. They want to get his attention because up to now, I don't think Mr. Armstrong has fully recognized the problem that he has with alcohol and the problem that alcohol causes for his treatment as a sex offender and his mental health. Amen, amen, amen. And so they're hoping that this further term of imprisonment will get his attention. Nice try, but I don't think it will. I think it's just going to further aggravate his alcoholism and his acting out. We'll be here again. They're hoping that when he comes out of prison, he will recommit himself to complying with all the terms of supervised release and working with them on what I think everybody sees as a significant alcohol problem. And if he continues to lie about it and continues to drink alcohol, I think, sadly for Mr. Armstrong, he's going to end up spending longer and longer periods of time in prison because we can't have this. And the sooner that Mr. Armstrong comes to terms with that and works on his alcohol issues and fully commits to sex offender treatment, I think the better for all of us. That's a great statement. It's nothing I can add to that. So, Your Honor, the government endorses what probation is recommending here. I think that 6 months for a first revocation is, given the facts of this case, is a measured and appropriate sanction for Mr. Armstrong, and hopefully it will be enough to get his attention and get him to change his ways and start working with the probation office. All right, thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Morgan? Thank you, Your Honor. All right, so now we're going to hear from Lorne's side. Just so the court's aware, Mr. Armstrong's mother, Gwendolyn, she goes by Linda, is here in the court today. Thank you. Lorne is requesting a different sentence than probation. I'm sure that doesn't surprise the court. He's been in custody for about 2 months now. He's requesting a sentence of 3 months, 2 months to be served through detention, and 1 to be served through home detention. Really, Lorne? So here's what he's hoping. He's going home with Mama Gwen today to ankle monitor home imprisonment or home detention. He's a lunatic. Additionally, he is requesting what was put in the original revocation report, which is a supervised release period of 10 years. And I'll get into the reasons why for both of these. He's requesting what was put in the original revocation, which is this supervised... Oh. Holy shit. You know what? Until you read it, you're like, you don't really understand. He's requesting what was put in the original revocation report, which is the supervised release period of 10 years. He doesn't want lifetime fucking supervision. He's in... Oh my God. I know this has been covered by much greater minds than mine. But I have to stop for a minute because that is so fucking ridiculous. This poor fucking attorney. He's currently at a hearing for how long he's going to serve for violating probation. And he has his attorney ask for supervised release for 10 years. This is why I'm saying Lorne will be back. He'll be back. Because right now, and I'm getting pissed off. I'm getting real fucking pissed off right now. Right now, that fucking piece of shit is sitting in a cell writing a letter to his mom. Send me more pens and paper because I'm writing this tell-all book and it's going to be high profile. Fuck you, Lorne. I'll see you next time in Bangor, you fuck. I'm gonna be there and I'm gonna wear a old cod t-shirt or some bullshit. Oh, I hope I don't owe Clobbering Time any money for that. Anyway, let me calm down. It just pisses me off. His sense of fucking entitlement. We've already touched on this, so I don't want to labor the point. But the internet notoriety that Lorne has gotten from this case has not been something that he wanted. Bullshit. It isn't something he wants. Bullshit. Probation indicated that he tried vindicating himself. The internet doesn't bring out the best in people. What? No way. And it clearly has not helped Lorne be successful on supervised release. No shit. Actually, I found the internet has introduced me to some wonderful people. So I don't know what this guy's talking about. Well, I'm confused about this. I thought he had restrictions against internet use. Is that not correct? He did have restrictions against internet use. There was a period of time where he didn't. They became gradually more restricted as his issues with these people who were reaching out to him. Someone attempted to reach out to his mother, trying to send her inappropriate photos. The more that happened, the more he engaged, and the more probation thought that wasn't helpful for him. And they could be right. They are right. Because if it were me, and I hope I'm never in that position, any kind of position like that. I wouldn't be, because I'm not a fucking child predator, but if someone started trying to engage with my family, I would probably try to erase every bit of internet presence of myself. Like, I would want as far away from that as possible. He's fucking insane. They could be right, but that wasn't. Well, I don't think there's any question that they're right. I mean, it's not could be. They are certainly right that it's not very good for him to be engaging all these people on the internet that are trying to provoke him. Understood. I mean, I think the natural human reaction sometimes is for people to defend themselves, and the internet is a terrible place to try to have that conversation with someone. So to the extent that is held against Lorne, I'd ask the court to also balance it for mitigating purposes as well, that he didn't ask for these people to become interested in him. In a way, though, he did. He engaged this community. He tried to profit from this community, which is one of the things that really disgusts me about Lorne. As long as they give me money, I don't give a fuck. He's garbage. Well, what about his use of the internet to try and contact women? And really, that's the real motivator there, isn't it? So I believe that the court is referencing the fact that he tried starting relationships with people whose ages were unknown. Probation hasn't indicated that these were minors. There'd be nothing wrong. Well, they say they don't know the ages of the people. Understood, Your Honor. Mr. Armstrong does not agree that any of them were minors. Probation hasn't done anything. Does he know the ages? He believes that he does. He's met. So he thinks he knows how old they are. And he's met. Well, how do you know the ages of anyone you're dealing with on the internet? Well, Your Honor, I don't know, but I don't either. This poor fucking attorney. This was a bad day for him. Another blow to Mr. Morgan. Yeah, ultimately, he's not seeking out minors, and his internet use was being monitored by probation. When the phone that he purchased, he was told he wasn't allowed to have it. He immediately turned it over, and nothing was found on the phone that he wasn't allowed to have. So I like how the lawyer puts this. This is kind of clever. The phone that he bought, he was told he wasn't allowed to have it, and he immediately turned it over. He makes it sound like Lorne didn't know he couldn't have this, and as soon as he found out he wasn't allowed to have it, he said, "Oh my God, I'm going to call probation and take this over immediately." He knew he was not allowed to get a smartphone. The only reason he turned it over, I believe, is because he was afraid he was going to get found out, and he thought his best option was to be honest. So there's nothing that says he isn't allowed to have adult relationships. Well, I mean, it says here, probation office received an anonymous email reporting that Armstrong was attempting to arrange for an unknown female to send him sexually explicit pictures through the mail so that probation would be unable to find the images. That's correct, but So he's going around probation. He's trying to avoid monitoring by probation, and that does not speak well for him. I can't disagree with that. That's an aggravating factor for sure. That was the reason that Magistrate Nivison, or one of the major reasons he refused to let Lorne back out when we had a detention hearing. So I can't disagree with the court about that fact. What I want to do is just make the point this internet following he has is not something that he's asking for. It's something he wishes would go away, and he doesn't wish it would go away. He wishes that we'd buy his stupid garbage. We'd buy his bullshit stories, we'd buy his bullshit t-shirts, and we'd buy his bullshit music. As long as they give me money, I don't give a fuck. I'm putting that on a fucking t-shirt, and I'm going to sell it. Well, the easiest way to make it go away is not to engage. I think that's easier said than done for some people, Your Honor. Why? But I agree. I think that he feels the need to let people know that he is no longer a predator because there's been no evidence that he is, and the more he's accused of this, it's a bad cycle for him. There's plenty of evidence that he's a predator. You don't just stop being a predator. He's made minimal progress in sex offender treatment. He's still a predator. Look, he's not going to get anywhere arguing with people on the internet. Nope. It's only going to provoke them. It's only going to make them continue to bother him and pester him. And the more he goes on the internet, the more vociferous and persistent they're going to be. He's got to stop using the internet. He's got to get counseling and get off the internet. That's what the judge is telling him. I don't disagree with the court. I think convincing him of that. Oh, really? Did the attorney just say that? I think convincing him of that. It's not like he's a child. I mean, well, I'm trying to convince him through you of that because it's not doing him any good. He's going to spend more time in jail. Like they're arguing like they're his parents or something. Understood. And Attorney Casey indicated that he felt probation didn't feel they had Lorne's attention yet. They certainly have Lorne's attention now, Your Honor. But look what it took. Look what it fucking... How scary is that? Look what it took to get Lorne's fucking attention. He's lost his job as a result of this conviction. That's why he fought so hard to get released. His mother is having to care for the animals he has at home. He stands to lose a trailer that he owns on a small piece of land in Somerset County. He doesn't have a lot in life, and because of what he's done, he stands to lose it. So he certainly, well, I mean, I feel sorry for him, but he's not the victim of his own crime. That's going to be my second t-shirt. He's not the victim of his own crime. It's going to have Lorne's fat fucking face on it. Understood, Your Honor. I'm trying to just let the court know that some of the factors to take into account when sentencing Mr. Armstrong. In any event, the case from Lorne's perspective is largely one about alcohol abuse. I understand the court has addressed other issues. He was released back in 2012 and went 3 years without any kind of violations. Yeah, isn't that funny? He went all that time without violations. I'm sure he violated probation, just probation didn't know about it. He's gone 4 years, and there have been a series since that 3 years, for 4 years, where he had alcohol violations. There's been no indication that he's had any contact of any inappropriate kind with minors, and probation has been monitoring his internet use, so it isn't the case that there's a big question mark there. They've been watching him. He agreed to every modification imposed by this court for drinking purposes. Yeah, he agreed to it on paper, and then he just did what he wanted. He didn't follow them every time, but he agreed to the modifications. It's this poor fucking attorney. And Attorney Casey indicated there is no indication of, I believe, alcohol treatment currently. Prior to his arrest, he had given now Officer Shockman, she's not here, but had given her an AA chip. He had gone 30 days without a drink before arrest. And listen, when you go and get an AA chip, he could walk in and say he's been sober for 2 years. They don't like do a urine test to make sure you... I mean, it means nothing. He had gone 30 days without a drink before arrest. Given his time in custody, he now has 90. Well, congratulations. Is the lawyer actually arguing? He's been sober 90 days. Yeah, because he has to be. And I doubt he was sober 30 days before he was arrested. In fact, I'm pretty certain I know. So he had been in some form of treatment. His protective custody kept him from entering AA treatment at Dover Foxcroft Jail, or he would have continued to do it there. His protective custody. He couldn't do AA meetings at the jail because he was at protective custody. What a piece of shit. And in part, this is the reason for the request for some portion of his sentence to be served through home detention so that he can re-enter the AA community in Somerset County. That's pretty clever. So you see, Your Honor, it's not really for Lorne. It's so he can go to AA. He can't go to AA while he's locked up, which is not true. They have 12-step meetings in prisons and jails. They have them everywhere. Sorry, I forgot to unmute my microphone. So he can re-enter the AA community in Somerset County, get back into sex offender treatment counseling. Dwayne Hogan has indicated he will take Lorne back after he serves some form of punishment so people in the group know there are consequences. And he hopes to be able to get his job back as well. Lastly, again, he's not a man of means. He has empty oil tanks, and he needs to get firewood for winter. I hear like this tiny violin playing. Na 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 do 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 do. He needs to get firewood for winter. If he's released in 6 months, that would be around January or February. So that's another reason that he's asking for some home detention component to his sentence. The last piece is that he is seeking this court to impose a period of supervised release of only 10 years afterwards. Jesus Christ, I can't wait for this. I can't wait to hear this. It's not that he's asking to be rewarded for violating, but that he would be the fairest imposition of supervised release. It was originally requested in the initial report, and after a couple recent sentences, it's hard to find exactly comparable cases. But Your Honor was involved in the Vincent Graham case, I believe down in Portland, a sex trafficking case. I believe he was given 6 years of supervised release. And the most recent U.S. Sentencing Commission report, well, Mr. He doesn't want to serve the kind of time I imposed on Mr. Graham. 26. No, understood, Your Honor. No. Mr. Graham, I don't have an entirely clear recollection, but it was decades in prison. 26 years, I think it was. 26 years. Yes. In prison. So my thought was that he was going to be relatively old by the time he got out, and the 6-year term of supervised release was. I don't think it's a very good analogy. Fair enough. It's difficult to find cases directly. I have trouble with this word. Analogous? I've never been able to not pronounce a word. You know the word. To the charge. In any event. Well, the bottom line is I'm not going to reduce his life term of supervised release until he demonstrates that he is not going to violate it. Good point. Okay. He's going to be in a lot better position if he minds his P's and Q's, keeps a straight line, doesn't come back to court, doesn't bother probation, basically obeys the directives of probation, doesn't lie to the probation officers, stops drinking, stops misbehaving online. If he does all that, and he does it for a sustained period, he is welcome to come back to the court and say, now that I've proven that I don't need supervised release because I've complied with its terms, will you reduce the term? But if he keeps bumping up against the guardrails, Lorne's great at bumping against guardrails, then that does not give me any confidence to reduce his term. Fuck. We got a little bit more to go, guys. And I don't want to kill you with this. I really was hoping to kind of get to a little bit more Lorne, but I think we're gonna wrap this up here. Let's see where's a good place to stop. Understood. Just that. Oh, but I will mention, I was just reading that, and I guarantee right after Lorne was like, did you hear that? The judge says I can come back and ask for, like, he doesn't hear all the stuff that he has to do. Now in his mind, I promise you, now in his mind, the judge says I can come back later and I can ask to have this reduced to 10 years. Understood. Just that. I mean, the onus is on him. Understood. Just so the court knows, the reason for the request was so that he'd have some light at the end of the tunnel. I hear your Honor's argument. Well, the light at the end of the tunnel is based on his compliance, not his violations. Understood. Let's finish with Mr. Morgan, and then we're going to wrap it up for tonight. The last piece that I just asked the court to consider is that Mr. Armstrong is more than a sex offender who has an alcohol problem. He had a good job before this. He drove truck. Even the lawyer says he drove truck. He drove truck for R.C. Moore. He delivered water. He was given free pallets of water. Pallets of water? Holy shit. And he would take those to the homeless shelter in Somerset County. He delivered them to family members, his aging aunt and his mother. He provides care for them on a pretty regular basis. Bullshit. He has a couple dogs at home that he would like to get back to. He's more than, as I said, a sex offender with an alcohol problem. So the lawyer is trying to humanize Lorne, but that's a really difficult task. He gets free water that he gives to a homeless shelter. It cost him nothing, but he donates it. I mean, the trucking company could just donate the water. Lorne's just sort of a middleman in the process. It's so stupid. And his dogs, and he helps he provides care for his aunt and his mother on a pretty regular basis. That's bullshit. His mother is here. She would like to address the court. I do apologize. I didn't get this within 3 business days before it was given to me this morning. I've shown it to Attorney Casey. It's a very short letter from his aunt. If there's no objection from Attorney Casey, I just ask if the court would also, I'd submit that. All right. Have you seen this, Mr. Casey? I have, Your Honor. No objection. All right. If I may approach. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Morgan handing letter to the clerk. All right. I'm going to admit defendant's exhibit number 1 from Aunt Sharon. Exhibit number 1, letter from Aunt Sharon, dated September 30th, 2019. I'm going to return the original to the clerk. Also, how can I get a copy of this letter from Aunt Sharon? I need to see this. Lorne probably fucking wrote that too, though. Thank you, Your Honor. At this point, I just ask if the court would please let his mother address the court. She is hard of hearing. I just let the court know that she has hearing aids, but has difficulty hearing, and then Mr. Armstrong wishes to as well. Oh, what do you think, guys? Should I go for it? Should I keep going? Let's do it. Sure. Thank you. Good morning, ma'am. Would you state your name for the record, please? I'm going to try to not do a mocking voice, but I would like to do some sort of voice for Mama Gwen. Gwendolyn Armstrong. Yes, ma'am. What would you like to tell me? Pardon? What would you like to tell me, ma'am? I am Lorne's mother. I have missed Lorne a lot. I am 79 years old, and he helped me a lot. He is a very caring son. He has 2 dogs that love him very much. I travel 20 miles every day to feed his dogs. Where he worked, he got free water, and he gave it to several family members and friends. He also gave 40 cases to the homeless shelter. He worried about me talking on the phone while I was driving, and he installed a hands-free device. Once, I rented a freezer on a rent-to-own plan, and he paid it off and told me they had a contest, and I had won. He didn't want me to know he paid it off, but his siblings thought I should know. He cleans my car. Her car. That is my car, you know. He cleans my car and vacuums my carpets in the house. He is always there when I need him. My sister has paid his land payment twice, and I have paid his other bills. So the sooner he gets back to work, we will be happy." What an interesting statement. Mama Gwen really had to reach if she wrote this. If she didn't, it's even worse. But she had to really reach to say some good things about her son. He vacuums my carpet and cleans my car. He paid off probably the last payment on a rent-to-own freezer. And I'm sure he didn't keep it a secret from her. This is a really thin list of why her son is a good person. We're just going to power through it, guys. You can pause it if you need a break, right? All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. As a defendant before the court, for determination and imposition of sentence, you have a constitutional right to address the court at this time. Do you have anything you wish to say to me, sir?
Thank you, Your Honor.
So apparently Lorne took a dramatic pause and had a drink of water.
I wish I would have spoken before my mom, because it's hard. Jesus, I want help from probation. I don't know how to handle the stuff that's online. It's not easy, because it's not something I'm used to. I almost want to say I don't know what they want from me. I don't know how to deal with it. And I hate it when people think bad of me, and I try to do the right thing, but sometimes it winds up being the wrong thing. With me not being online, I can't sell I wrote a book when I was in jail before, and I've got 50% of it that's going to Wounded Warrior Project, and I can't even sell it online. And I've got people online that are reading it and making money off it without my permission, and then making money off my name without permission. I can't protect me. I can't protect my family. The only thing I really want to do on YouTube is to be able to sing and to do my cooking shows. Other than that, I don't care to be online. I don't care to even engage with anybody online. I don't know how to. I don't know how to go about keeping them away from me and attacking me and my family. I can't even get probation to help me with that, because they don't even know how to do it. And that's part of what makes me drink. And I don't want to drink anymore. And I don't want to put my mom through this. That's all.
All right. Anything further, Mr. Casey? Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you. So, Mr. Armstrong, I'm going to speak to you very briefly. As I do, I'm going to tell you what sentence I'm going to impose, and then I'll ask you to stand up for the imposition of sentence. So you've got two overriding issues, and the first is, and I think the most prominent, is your alcohol abuse. You've got to figure out a way to stop drinking. The drinking isn't doing you any good. It's causing you to bump heads with probation. But more than that, it's just not doing you any good. When people drink, they lose control. They lose their inhibitions, and they do stupid things. It was stupid to do that. And they act foolishly. And you don't need to do that anymore. You don't need alcohol. It's not good for you. And what you have to do is look in the mirror and accept the fact you're an alcoholic. You drink too much, even when it's not good for you, and you need the help of other people who can guide you away from drinking. It's a tough drug. It's a hard drug. There are a lot of alcoholics. There's no shame in it. There's no shame in not accepting the help. So that's the first thing. You have to confront your alcoholism. Part of alcohol abuse is that people try and hide it, and they start sneaking around, and it's not, if you sneak a drink, you're not bullying anybody. The next thing is this online business, and I can tell you the best thing for you, Mr. Armstrong, is just pretend it doesn't exist. Just cut it off. You don't need it. In some ways, I think the world would be a lot better off if we didn't have an internet and we didn't have email. We didn't have it's created a lot of good, but it's created a lot of unexpected harm. You don't need it. You don't need to go online. There's no reason. and the only reason Lorne could give was that he can't sell his book online and is fucking 50% going to Wounded Warrior, and 50% of nothing is nothing anyway, Lorne. If people are talking about you online, you don't go online. You'll never know about it. Just divorce yourself from it. So somebody wants to say something about you online. If you don't hear it, you'll never know it. And pretty soon, it's like everything else. You keep putting your head up, someone's going to take a shot at you. If you keep your head down, they're not going to pay any attention to you. Over time, you're going to disappear on the internet. Not if I have anything to say about it. But if you rile them up, they're going to go after you. There's no talking to people on the internet. You're not going to convince them that you're a good person. It's not going to happen. They'll never meet you. They don't know you. And all they know about you is your criminal history. You're not going to suddenly change their mind. Oh, he tells me he's a good guy, so I ought to believe him. They're not going to believe you, and they think it's fun to provoke you. So just cut it off. You don't need it. Listen to the radio, read a book, watch TV, but don't go on the internet. Okay, so likewise, I think every day someone should knock on someone should knock on Lorne's door, and say that to him as well. But then again, I hope not, because he might actually stay away. And I think what's happening in part is that you drink too much, and then you go on the internet, and then you're really asking for it because you're not acting sensibly either. So you've got two things you've got to control. You've got to control your alcohol use, and you've got to control your internet access. If you stop drinking alcohol, that's a huge first step. And the second step is to stop going on the internet. Just leave it. If you did those two things, you'd be an awful lot happier.
What do I do about...
He's going to talk to you right now. So Lorne just sat quietly this whole time and thinks, the judge addresses him, and Lorne's just going to shout out, "What do I do about..." He's an idiot. I wish they would have, I want to know what he was going to ask. He's going to talk to you right now. Just leave it behind. That's what I'm telling you. Just leave it behind. That's my best advice. Leave it behind. The problem you've got is that you committed a crime that makes people angry. And you committed a crime that worries people because they all love little 13-year-old girls and they worry about them. And you can ask any father or any mother out there. They worry themselves sick that someone is going to contact their daughter on the internet and they won't know about it. And some guy's going to drive across state lines to try and visit them and have sex with them. That's something you did, and you're not going to be able to change anyone's mind about it by going on and arguing with them on the internet. So just cut it out. Something interesting just struck me. The judge gives him this great advice, and before he can even finish, Lorne is ready to argue. I guarantee he was about to throw out an argument about why he needs to stay on the internet. That is why Lorne will always fail. If you keep doing it, if you keep drinking too much and you keep going on the internet, you're going to spend more and more time in jail. So listen to Mr. Turgeon. He's a very fine officer. He's a good officer. He's a good man. He can help you. But if you start disobeying him and start lying to him, start sneaking around, he's going to turn into a police officer and you're going to be back here and I'm not going to be happy to see you. Do you understand what I'm telling you?
Yes, sir.
You'll stand for the imposition of sentence. The defendant is hereby committed to the custody of United States Bureau of Prisons to be imprisoned for 6 months. The cost of the incarceration fee is waived. The defendant is to be remanded to the custody of United States Marshal. Upon release from imprisonment, the defendant shall be on supervised release for a term of life. The defendant shall comply with the newly imposed standard conditions effective November 1st, 2016, and all previously imposed special conditions. The defendant shall also comply with the following additional conditions. 1. The defendant shall participate in mental health treatment as directed by the supervising officer until release from the program by the supervising officer. The defendant shall pay or co-pay for services during such treatment to the supervising officer's satisfaction. 2. The defendant shall not use or possess any controlled substance, alcohol, or other intoxicant, and shall participate in a program of alcohol and drug abuse therapy to the supervising officer's satisfaction. This shall include testing to determine if the defendant has used drugs or intoxicants. The defendant shall pay or copay for services during such treatment to the supervising officer's satisfaction. The defendant shall not obstruct or tamper or try to obstruct or tamper in any way with any tests. 3. The defendant shall not associate with individuals consuming alcoholic beverages. Guess he's not going over Tony and Wendy's. Shall not frequent businesses, establishments whose primary product is alcoholic beverages, and shall not use any medication containing alcohol without permission from the supervising officer or a prescription from a licensed physician. Hello, Oscar. All right, she's going to start screaming here in a minute. She does this thing every night. She has this little toy. It's a little squirrel, and this thing is her favorite toy, and she runs around with it in her mouth and makes that noise you might have just heard her doing. I don't know why she does it. Are we done? I'm almost finished here, buddy. So be quiet, sweetie, okay? Want biscuit? Want biscuit?
Oh, big handsome doofy baby.
Oh, you pretty little girl. All right, y'all want me to wrap this up, I know. 4. A United States probation officer may conduct a search of the defendant and of anything the defendant owns, uses, or possesses if the officer reasonably suspects the defendant has violated a condition of supervised release and reasonably suspects that evidence of the violation will be found in the areas to be searched. Searches must be conducted at a reasonable time and in a reasonable manner. Failure to submit to a search may be grounds for revocation of release. 5. The defendant shall participate and comply with the requirements of the computer and internet monitoring program, which may include partial or full restriction of computers, internet, intranet, and internet-capable devices, and shall pay for services directly to the monitoring company. You're paying for it, Lorne. The defendant shall submit to periodic, unannounced examinations of his computers, storage media, and or other electronic or internet-capable devices performed by the probation officer. This may include the retrieval and copying of any prohibited data and the removal of such systems for the purpose of conducting a more comprehensive search. 6. The defendant shall fully participate in sex offender treatment as directed by the supervising officer. The defendant shall pay or copay for services during such treatment to the supervising officer's satisfaction. He shall abide by all policies and procedures of that program. 7. The defendant shall submit to periodic random polygraph examinations as directed by the probation officer to assist in treatment and or case planning related to behaviors potentially associated with sex offense conduct. No violation proceedings will arise solely on the defendant's failure to pass a polygraph examination or on the defendant's refusal to answer polygraph questions based on Fifth Amendment grounds. Such an event could, however, generate a separate investigation. 8. The defendant shall not associate or have verbal, written, telephonic, or electronic communication with persons under the age of 18 except in the presence of a responsible adult who is aware of the nature of the defendant's background and current offense and has been approved by the probation officer. 9. In addition to any other requirements, the defendant shall submit to testing with a remote alcohol monitoring device that measures breath alcohol content for a period not to exceed 120 days, not to exceed 5 tests per day. Defendant shall pay or copay for services directly to the monitoring company to the supervising officer's satisfaction. The defendant shall not obstruct or tamper or try to obstruct or tamper in any way with any tests. During the remote alcohol testing period, the court authorizes the search of the defendant's geographic location and movements by the probation office via the program's equipment. That's kind of interesting. Is there any objection to the terms of supervised release other than the duration issue that counsel raised previously? No, Your Honor. Mr. Armstrong, I must advise you, you have a right to appeal this revocation of supervised release and sentence if you wish to do so. In order to effectively exercise the right of appeal, you must cause to be filed with the clerk of this court within 14 days of today and not thereafter a written notice of appeal. Do you understand? Well, I guess Lorne didn't appeal this, did he?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
I advise you, if you fail to timely file the written notice of appeal, you have given up your right to appeal the sentence and revocation. Do you understand? No, he doesn't. Because I guarantee like a year from now, he'll be trying to appeal this for some reason. Clear his good name. Yes, sir, Your Honor. If you cannot afford to file the appeal, you can appeal without cost to you. And on your request, the clerk will immediately prepare and file a notice of appeal on your behalf. Do you understand? Because he's always in forma pauperis. Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Sorry, I lost my Lorne. Is there anything further from the government? Your Honor, to the extent it needs to be noted on the record, the probation office moves to dismiss charge 4 of the petition. Any objection to the dismissal of charge 4? No, Your Honor. The court dismisses upon motion of the government without objection from the defendant violation charge number 4, which I think was the smartphone. Anything further from the government? No, thank you, Your Honor. Anything further from the defendant? Nothing further. Thank you. The defendant is herewith remanded to the custody of the United States Marshal for the District of Maine in execution of the sentence imposed. Good luck, Mr. Armstrong. Court will stand in recess. Proceedings concluded at 11:40 a.m. The end. I got through the whole fucking thing. That was amazing. I hope you enjoyed it. I know, like I said, this and my previous 2 videos are probably maybe a little too dry for some people's taste, but I wanted to read the whole thing, just like the chat log. I wanted to give it the attention that it deserves, and lovingly cherish every word. Thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully I'll see you all at the next revocation hearing, and we'll have a big party. Okay? Thanks for hanging with me, guys. Bye, sweethearts.